This is Rummy's Corner.
Oleksandr Usyk is widely viewed as the greatest pound-for-pound boxer in the world today. He is the former undisputed cruiserweight champion. He became the first undisputed world heavyweight champion in the modern four-belt era, and he remains the reigning undefeated heavyweight king. When looking at his career as a whole, Usyk is already clearly an all-time great, one of the very best of this generation in professional boxing, perhaps the very best. But when specifically looking at his career at heavyweight, is Oleksandr Usyk an all-time great at heavyweight? Cutting straight to the point, for me the answer is yes. Usyk is indeed an all-time great heavyweight, absolutely, positively, beyond any shadow of a doubt. But Usyk is an interesting and tricky situation in heavyweight history. If he were to retire today and never fight again, I imagine future opinions about his all-time ranking at heavyweight would vary wildly. To date, Usyk has only officially had 7 fights at heavyweight, against only 5 different opponents. But almost all of those fights were against highly regarded heavyweights. There is not a whole lot of depth there, but what he lacks in quantity he makes up for in quality. After Usyk defended his undisputed cruiserweight crown against Tony Bellew in his final fight before making the jump to heavyweight, the big 3 heavyweights were Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury. In his first fight moving up, Usyk beat Chaz Witherspoon. It was a solid performance for Usyk, and while Witherspoon was a late replacement and not exactly a world-class opponent, it was a good fight to help Usyk get accustomed to the new weight. The fight was stopped after round 7. Next up, Usyk took on veteran heavyweight Derek Chisora in a big step up. Chisora made a strong account of himself and provided Usyk with a greater challenge at the weight, but in the end, Usyk's superior skills and stamina won the day, where he put forth a consistent and effective effort to win a 12-round unanimous decision. In his third fight at the weight, Usyk went up against unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua. It wound up being a masterclass performance from Usyk, as he thoroughly outboxed the much larger reigning champion. Usyk was simply too talented and clever for AJ, and at the end of 12 rounds, Usyk was awarded a unanimous decision. With that victory, Usyk won the unified IBF WBA WBO heavyweight championship, marking him as a 2-division world champion. It was more of the same in their rematch, where Usyk once again outboxed and outfoxed Joshua. To his credit, AJ put forth a more spirited effort this time around, but it wasn't enough. Usyk once again emerged triumphant, this time winning a 12-round split decision, where one judge inexplicably scored the bout in favor of AJ. But Usyk was the clear winner in that one, and that victory provided him with his first successful title defense at heavyweight. Next up for Usyk was WBA mandatory challenger Daniel Dubois. The story of this fight became the low blow controversy, but the referee made his call quickly and decisively without hesitation, and that's all there really was to it. Usyk stopped Dubois in round 8, after otherwise being in control throughout without much issue. In his next fight, Usyk made boxing history when he beat WBC and lineal world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury. Fury had the best stretch of success anyone had against Usyk at heavyweight. This was a dramatic, action-packed fight with a few key shifts in momentum throughout, but Usyk battered Fury in round 9, scoring an official knockdown. At the end of 12 rounds, Usyk was awarded a split decision, where one judge generously scored the fight for Fury. This marked Usyk as the first undisputed world heavyweight champion in the modern four-belt era, and the first undisputed heavyweight champion since the great Lennox Lewis last held that distinction nearly a quarter of a century earlier. In his most recent bout, it was more of the same again in the rematch. Usyk vacated the IBF belt prior to this one, and was technically no longer undisputed. Usyk and Fury battled it out again, and it was another competitive affair, but Usyk was simply better on a more consistent basis. It was a good effort from Fury, but Usyk was just more effective on the whole, and Usyk's superior stamina and accuracy won the day. Usyk was awarded a 12-round unanimous decision victory, and this was title defense number 4 for Usyk at heavyweight. That is where Usyk stands. A perfect 7-0 at heavyweight, including a perfect 5-0 in title fights, with 4 title defenses. If you combine his cruiserweight championship fights, his record becomes 12-0. Now, obviously, those 7 wins in cruiserweight title fights don't count toward his heavyweight legacy, but rather his overall legacy. A lot of people, however, will point to the fact that Usyk's fights at cruiserweight were against men the size of classical heavyweights throughout most of the division's history. In that sense, it adds something to how one might regard him in a head-to-head sense at heavyweight. After all, at 6'3" and 220 plus pounds, Usyk would be a big-sized heavyweight throughout most of boxing history, and in a head-to-head sense, Usyk would have likely done very well against many heavyweight champions of the past, where many great heavyweights from the past would be modern-day cruiserweights. But of course, with head-to-head rankings, it's all subjective. In terms of what Usyk has officially actually done at heavyweight, not a whole lot of fights, not a whole lot of depth, and not a whole lot of title defenses. Usyk will be turning 38 this week, so it seems unlikely that he will have the time to add longevity to become a dominant, long-reigning champion. So Usyk is not likely to string together a ton of title defenses, like Joe Louis, Larry Holmes, or Vladimir Klitschko. Although it is interesting to note that Usyk already has more title defenses than guys like Riddick Big Daddy Bowe and Sonny Liston, the latter of whom is often regarded as a top 10 heavyweight or someone just outside the top 10. At 38 years old, Usyk is already at the point where if he loses, it's forgivable. He's getting up there in age, and historically he's around the age where heavyweight greats tend to fall off. So even if Usyk loses going forward, it's not something that should significantly detract from his heavyweight legacy. But if he can continue winning, even if it's just another fight or two, especially if it's another fight or two against highly regarded top 10 heavyweights, it can only act to enhance his legacy. That is particularly true if he can retire with his undefeated record intact, which would potentially make Usyk a very divisive figure among future boxing historians. Look at Rocky Marciano, himself a bit of a divisive character in boxing history. Marciano retired as the undefeated heavyweight champion with a perfect record of 49-0, including a perfect 7-0 in heavyweight world championship fights. Just a couple of more championship wins than Usyk has, incidentally. Marciano's loudest detractors belittle his career, claiming he would be nothing more than a small cruiserweight today, and that he only beat a bunch of smaller old men well past their prime. Marciano would be small by today's heavyweight standards, but these types of comparisons are of the hypothetical head-to-head variety and should really have no impact on his heavyweight ranking and legacy. As for beating older, smaller heavyweights, the fact remains that Rocky was defending his championship against the best available guys in the division. Walcott was the reigning world heavyweight champion when Rocky beat him. And while towering legends like Ezzard Charles and Archie Moore were both older, they were still formidable foes. The fact remains that almost all of Rocky's title defenses came against the #1 available contender according to Ring Magazine. When speaking about Rocky Marciano and heavyweight legacies in general, Emanuel Stewart once told me that all you can do is consistently fight the best of your era. And he praised Marciano, citing that he dodged no one, he fought the best, and he beat the best, and that you have to respect him for that. I agree with Emanuel, and I for one believe that the same exact sentiment applies to Usyk here. When Usyk moved up to heavyweight, the big three were Joshua, Wilder, and Fury. Wilder got knocked off in his epic trilogy with Fury, at which point Fury and AJ were widely regarded as the 2 best heavyweights in the world. At an advanced age and giving up massive weight against both, Usyk thoroughly outclassed AJ 2 times, and then he decisively twice beat Fury. 48 rounds against the 2 top dogs in the division, and Usyk emerged from those rivalries 4-0. That's all that really needs to be said. And he also had the big win against reigning IBF champion Dubois, and another very respectable victory against Chisora. To repeat what I said earlier, what Usyk lacks in quantity, he makes up for in quality. At the end of the day, no matter what happens from here on out, I believe Usyk already qualifies as an all-time great heavyweight, and he can only add to and enhance his legacy at this point, if he indeed fights on. Is he a top 10 heavyweight? I don't personally think so, although a couple of more big wins, and he's right on the cusp and a part of that discussion. Top 15? Not sure, but that's a discussion he is almost certainly already entered. But there is no arbitrary cutoff point for what constitutes an all-time great heavyweight. And in terms of this era, he came up from cruiserweight, and in just 5 championship fights, he has already beaten everyone who was worth beating when he initially made the jump up to heavyweight. And as the great Emmanuel Stewart once said, that's all we can ask of from any champion, is to consistently face and beat the best in his era. And in his short time at heavyweight, Oleksandr the Great has done so. And he has done so in impressive fashion. What do you think? Is Usyk an all-time great heavyweight? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful night. This is Rummy's Corner.